Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
And sweetheart, I'd rather be watching a movie at Schalamoid.
I know.
Do I look better with my glasses or without my glasses?
I think we talked about this before. I think you're fine. I think makes you look smart. It helps with your aesthetics.
Yes, it's nice to look smart, even if you're really not smart. Okay. Nice to look, at least look smart.
Yeah, you're fine. You're doing great, Ema. Fantastic. All right. So we talked last podcast about Dark Side of the Moon,
Mm,
and you took a listen to it.
yes.
We had a conversation over Yom Tif, and let's see if we can recreate it and then kind of expand on it. You were saying that it sounded very experimental, similar to the avant-garde Andy Warhol type of
Yes.
music at the time.
Right.
Um,
Well, and Warhol didn't create music, but he was with that. He was art, but it was that whole genre of experimental art and music. Like, you know, taking like he took the Campbell soup cans and just took just had a picture of them all lined up.
so it's
Yeah,
pop art where you take
yeah.
something that's already pre-made and you create something else from it. So I think Dark Side of the Moon, they did have other pieces to it where
Mm.
I think they created all those aspects. It wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't call it pop art in that sense. It was very similar to Revolution 9, I think, for in the Beatles. Remember we heard that, went through that.
Mhm.
And it was very similar to like a lot of very different kinds of background music.
But you brought up something very interesting, which was true. I mean, you mentioned me Revolution. I didn't know what you were talking about, and then you played for me some of the songs. I said, "Oh yeah, I know that song. I know that song." And you mentioned something in those days when I was growing up, like you said, in order to listen to a whole album, you had to go to the store. You had to buy the album.
Yeah.
And that was it. Now you can just go on your phone and you can just download these things.
Well, I want to just elaborate on that. What I was trying to say was like in the 1960s, when you wanted to get an album, first off, you had to pay money to get the album.
And I was cheap. I wasn't about to spend a lot of money on rock and roll music, which I thought was garbage.
But you listen to the Beatles.
But I
Um,
did spend my money on Deutsche Grammophon, some of their collection, like Bach cantatas, the uh, uh, Brahms Zigeunerlied and Zigeuner,
so,
gypsy songs.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was talking about was you had to buy the album. You had to sit there and listen to the whole album and concentrate on it and focus on it. When nowadays people could like I listen to the whole Beatles itinerary just by like driving to and from work, you know. It's just a lot more accessible. So I was able to have a wider range of music. And that when you were younger, you couldn't get that wider range, which is surprising because like, you were like a fan of the Beatles, you were a fan of these artists, and you weren't able to get a hold of all of their albums. But nowadays, you can listen to everything. Um,
Like I said, you just go on your phone, you just
yeah,
go on YouTube, and
yeah,
get everything and anything. You are the pampered generation.
pampered, sure.
They called the baby boomers the pampered generation because it was the best world economy. In fact, the best economy that the United States ever saw. So we had all these like wonderful
Yeah, like
opportunities
buying a
and
house
yeah,
and being able to,
yeah.
have
But I think
afford.
I think you guys are more pampered though because you get anything you want on YouTube.
Yeah, but it's also the fact
Yeah.
that like, you guys were able to go ahead and with just one single salary pay for everything. College was how much when you were growing up compared to inflation rates and plus adjusting everything else, but how much even
Would
I
you
had to pay.
believe my base tuition without fees was only $200 a semester.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point.
Mhm.
Like we might have these capabilities and other stuff, but it still is an issue here and there.
But then again, I never paid for college. I got, thank God, a full scholarship that covered fees and everything practically in books the first couple of years. And it was matter of fact, I made money in college. That's when I get these calls. Hello, we can help you reduce your student loan. I said, I don't have a student loan. I made money in college. Goodbye.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I still have my student loans, but they're not as bad as everyone else's.
Oh yeah,
Like I'm only like 20,000. It's not terrible
it's
compared
nothing
to
compared to other
everyone else.
people.
Plus, who knows what's going to happen with Biden? What they're going to do with the student loans thing? They might forgive the whole stuff. They might have other criteria. So I'm just waiting that out.
If
Uh,
it's nuclear war, it'll wipe up everything, all the records, so you don't have to worry then.
I mean, the way things are going, I think it might be shifting towards there. Uh, but yeah, back to the idea of the music. So that was like I would say similar to like a concerto of of a classical music. If you compare it to, you're calling it pop art, but I would call it, classic rock, psychedelic rock, really, where you have a whole orchestra of music strung together for about 45 minutes. And I can hear that over and over and over again. And that's what I was saying beforehand, where it's like if you have certain music, and you showed me actually
Mhm.
a few other pieces. Oh, what was that woman's name?
Oh, Jane Wang, I think is her name.
Yeah,
Wang or Wang, I think
Wang,
it's Jane,
Wang, Wang.
Jane Wang. And she was playing variations on a theme by Paganini by Sergei Rachmaninoff. And the ending of that is like
Really intense. Really,
very, very intense. And then after all this intense music, the very last note, at the very last note is one little
yeah.
little touch, that's one little note on the piano after all that.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. It's like I think there is more classical music that has that, I guess, pizzazz that unfortunately isn't really focused on. I think people kind of ignore it. They hear like, you know, I can't really, I can recall the tune, but I can't recall the name.
The thing is this, to enjoy classical music fully, I mean, there are some people I know who've never had any background in music and they just like classical music. Some of them, they just like it. But to really fully appreciate classical music and enjoy it, you have to have somewhat of a background in music education. And in my day, part of part of
Basic
your
education.
education was a music appreciation program for those people who were not truly involved in music. I mean, for people like myself, people who were actually playing instruments, we were in the orchestra all the time.
Yeah,
And if we had any free time, like everybody else had study hall, no, we ran right to the music room and and we were just practicing on our own. Everything was every moment, every free moment was practice.
yeah,
Kids that were in the choir, they had choir.
yeah,
So we were, those people who were involved in music were already musically educated because you needed to read your part, whatever. But to the students who were not music students, everyone had to take a music appreciation course, which was basic music theory. So like basically what a C is, what a D is, what basic chords are. You would hear um, you would hear very like well-known classical pieces. And I remember in college too, those people that were not music majors, like my sister, had to take in her freshman year a music appreciation course. And what it was introduction to the main, like the main eras of music, like your Baroque, your Renaissance, Baroque, classical, romantic, your modern and contemporary, jazz, 20th century, atonal music. And so they basically were given a background in this music. And they don't have that anymore.
yeah. Because funding was
So
cut in the
sad.
'90s.
Yeah,
It was
so
cut what, under
sad.
Bush?
I
Who cut the funding?
there were various school districts. I remember various school districts in the 80s
Mm.
started to cut all their music and art and gym
So under
programs.
Reagan, they had public funding being cut for schools with music education, things like that.
I don't know. I can't say for sure.
Well, I think
I
Reagan
don't
was in the '80s.
Yeah,
He went back to back, and then it was
it could have
Bush.
been.
So '80s and
Mhm.
'90s would be under their
I
presidency.
remember reading an article in the
Okay.
newspaper. Said it was like and not only that, but then the price of tickets started. Would you believe a ticket to the Baltimore Symphony concert
Hmm.
for just balcony, the cheap tickets, $2.
At that time, that was probably worth like what,
Two
$10?
dollars, and I used to love to go. In fact, I had got guys would take me up. They go, "Where do we go?" I say, "Let's go to Baltimore Symphony concert tonight. It's only $2." And we go, "You kidding?" Because they weren't into classical music like I was.
Yeah,
So, but then when I got to college, I had friends who were into classical music, and guys would take me up. We'd go to concerts. But then in the 90s, the price started to shoot up to like you say, $20
yeah,
more. So there was a critique of a Baltimore Symphony concert that was with this concert pianist that was absolutely magnificent. And the person who critiqued it said it was such a magnificent concert. It was amazing. And he said, and I don't understand why the auditorium wasn't even half full.
Probably because
Maybe
it's
it
too
was cool.
expensive,
And
and I think
yeah,
advertisement and PR. I think in a
mm,
way, classical music they don't know how to sell it because I remember, and I still do to this day. I get notifications for these concerts, and some of them are
mhm,
like, "Oh, we're going to do the entire, again, Dark Side of the Moon in
uh-huh,
orchestra,"
uh-huh,
or they have other like we're gonna do like the Beatles or Lord of the Rings or all these other things in orchestra, and
mhm,
people love it and they pay for it and they
mhm.
go because they're familiar with it. It's
Right.
interesting. They know what's going on.
But you hit the nail on the head
Familiar.
when you
I
said
know it's
familiar with it.
familiar.
And because you had two things when this started to happen, where the concert going really went down, there were two things that were happening. First of all, the tickets were going up beyond what the average person could afford, the average at least student could afford, and there was no music education.
Yeah,
So you had those two things that were happening where people didn't even have an appreciation of classical genre.
but I think it's getting to a way, and this is where it's like the way I understand it is that if something's good, it'll be good and it'll stand on its own 2 feet. It's like I said in the previous podcast about like a potato chip. Like you don't tell someone a potato chip is an acquired taste. You just know potato chip tastes good. Like there's no need to push it. Like there was this one comic strip actually, um, called Zippy the Pinhead. Do you remember that? It was a comic strip
Zippy the
called
Pinhead.
Zippy, not Ziggy, Zippy the Pinhead.
Zippy.
Zippy
I
the
said
Pinhead.
Zippy the.
Yeah, and it was about this weird comic guy. And if you read the comic, it makes no
Now
sense.
my classes are getting
But
dirty.
I'm sorry. But if you go online, there's an explanation and a direction of how you're supposed to understand or read the comic. And in my head, I'm like, I should know what's going on. I should have to have someone tell me how to interpret and read the comic strip.
So how did you interpret and read the comic strip?
It looked like a giant ADHD moment, like 5 million things happening. But what you're supposed to understand is one thing is a train of thought, is a subconscious train of thought. The other one is the conscious train of thought, and they're trying to get to this one conclusion. And you're supposed to be watching both different trains of thoughts getting to that conclusion in every single comic strip. And the guy is there's a lot of art pieces. The guy has a weird shaped head and a big nose, and he wears a clown outfit, and it's just very outlandish. I'll show it to you after the podcast, and I'll show
But
you
was it
too.
one of these comic strips that was really like funny, or it was like,
It was like
mm,
avant-garde in a way where
mm,
it's like you're trying too hard. It should just be
mm,
funny. It shouldn't have to, like, you read Garfield or Dilbert, or you read Family Circus, like you know what you're getting, you can understand what you're getting, you get the
I
point.
was thinking about if you want to think of a comic that almost borders and that with a couple like what was it, the Far Side.
Far Side,
That
yes.
is also like that's gonna be more towards like a more of an avant-garde
But
type
that's
thing.
not avant-garde.
And it's also oh darn, not just the Force, it was the other one. There was another one that was very like political.
Oh, I think you're
What
talking
was it?
about
It was kind of avant-garde.
a non sequitur.
Not Secretary is one, but there was another one. Darn it. Can't think of it. I'm looking at it now. All the characters had very big dark eyes.
All the characters have big dark
Yeah.
eyes.
Trying to think what that was.
I'm trying to, yeah, and it doesn't ring
It
a
was
bell.
very political. But I was thinking about
Oh,
also,
Doonesbury.
yeah, that's Doomsbury. And also I was thinking about the uh what's his name? The kid, the ADH kid with the
Oh,
tiger.
Calvin Hobbes.
Calvin and Hobbes, right. Calvin, when Calvin goes into his daydreams,
Yes, and it gets
he
really graphic.
imagines that he's in outer
But
space,
that's
and then the last frame he's right, he's is the reality of what he really is.
I mean, that's again, see things like that. That's just high quality cartooning where you're able to understand everything and you don't need to go online and read up on how to interpret it. Like it's silly, it's stupid.
Tell me, do I haven't seen comics. Do newspapers still have comics?
Newspapers do have comics, but nowadays comics are online.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Because I know New York Post does not have comics. Actually, New York Post is a comic in itself.
Yes. Um, but yeah, back to what we're saying, like that's the biggest issue when it comes to art because you have the idea that you need to be out of the box, you need to really be creative. But I think there's too much pressure to be creative. and not enough pressure to be organized and structured.
Mhm.
I think once you're organized and structured, you know the box, then you can get out of the box, then you could bend the box, then you can move the box. But if you're trying to be like, we're not having the box at all, and like everyone's trying to be my captain, my captain by the was Robin Williams movie, Dead Poet Society,
Uh-huh.
where you're trying to be like, oh, I'm breaking free from this restraint, but like you need that restraint first in order to break free.
Well, that was one of the when I was teaching, that was when these like avant-garde, no walls classrooms, freedom of expression started to come on the scene in education.
Yeah,
And I discovered, as many teachers did, these kids need skills. You need to start with skills.
yeah,
So that's what was needed. So many of the teachers just went ahead and we were teaching basic spelling, basic sentence structure first, because you need to, like I said, have the rules established, and then you can branch out from there. So I got a letter from a mother gave me a whole spiel about restricting her child's creativity, and that she needs to let loose her brain to just to be able to get us it was a whole spiel.
it's a whole, yeah.
So I wrote her back. I said, I agree with you. However, as a student, someone this was like seventh grade,
Yeah.
as a seventh grader, first we need to establish proficiency in skills, and then as she gets older, then she can branch out and become more creative.
Well, that was going to actually ask you then, because I would think jazz is very out there where it's a lot of improv and not a lot of structure.
Mhm.
But the only way to really appreciate jazz is if you really appreciate classical music in a way of the structure they have, and the rules they have, and the
Mhm.
golden rules.
Well, that was Gershwin's thing.
Yeah.
Gershwin took jazz and applied the classical rules to jazz and created, my goodness, Rhapsody in Blue,
Yeah.
the Concerto in F.
Those are
Yes,
beautiful
they're
pieces.
beautiful.
Those are
Yes.
beautiful pieces. That's actually Rhapsody in Blue is one of my favorite jazz pieces.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more on the structure and the jazz and what jazz is? Because I know, like,
I'm not an authority on
I
jazz.
know you're not authority, but I'm saying, but at least you've listened to it enough where you have an opinion.
Well, there's jazz also goes through its own evolution. I remember in college, I used to listen to the old jazz musicians from, say, 20s and 30s, like really old stuff, like Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith was like she was almost like an icon.
Yeah.
And we listened to me and my friends listened to it's a lot of her music.
Yeah. So Bessie, okay, so Bessie Smith.
And there was also, I don't know, there was just there were a lot of like, groups from the Onyx Club, 42nd Street. As a matter of fact, there was one time I was about to go to sleep, and WBJC
Yeah.
had the original, I think 1922 recording, I think 29 recording. It was a recording of Gershwin himself
Oh, really?
playing Rhapsody in Blue, just not an orchestra, but it's the piano
Yeah.
at the 40 on 42nd, one of the clubs on 42nd Street.
Oh, interesting.
And it was a very iconic, very interesting recording of
So,
he himself playing
so
the
my
piano.
question then is, so then how would you compare it to classical music when you listen to it and whether you enjoy it?
But jazz?
Yeah, because I can tell. I'll start the example, right? I can listen to soft rock, could be like Coldplay, right?
Yeah.
And the way I enjoy that is when I'm lying down or when I'm standing or when I'm walking and I'm listening to it, it feels that I'm floating,
Hmm.
right? And I'm floating away and just listening to a moment and seeing a moment through music. Now, if I went ahead and listened to Puddle of Mud, like the songs we just heard, that is very energetic and makes me feel like I want to like run a marathon. So when you listen to classical music, how does it make you feel comparatively to listening to jazz music? And how would you want to take in jazz versus taking classical, because you've been to orchestras, but jazz is more of like going into like a dive bar with like, some smoke and some piano and some clinking of glasses here and there. And some guy sits down who looks like kind of old and disheveled, and he starts playing on the piano. Like it's a different moment. So that's what I'm saying. Like there has to be a different moment comparatively. And you yourself have a strong opinion of music, that you definitely have something, at least the feeling of it, you know?
Mm, I don't know, but like I said, but there's different types of jazz, of course. There's,
I know.
you're early, you're late, you know, um, there's some jazz I've heard that I did not like for the modern jazz. There was this movie that was made. I'm not quite sure about the year this movie was made, but it was made, had to easily be the 1960s. And it was, Tony Curtis, Burt Lancaster, takes place in New York City about this organized crime figure.
Hmm.
And the movie was not that exciting. A lot of people were very disappointed in it because this was a movie with some very big name people in it, and you thought, wow, big name people is going to be some movie, and
It
it,
bombed.
it it really bombed. And the movie featured the this jazz composer and his band. I think the man's last name was Katz, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, there's a scene where there's people in the nightclub and they're dancing to this jazz musician's music. And it's one of these jazz pieces that it just goes all over the place. No real theme, just a bunch of notes all over the place.
Yeah.
And this girl walks over, dances over to Tony Curtis, who's standing there with the band, and she says, "Wow, this music is really great. Who composed it?" And this was actually he put the support of the movie. He introduced the actual composer to her, and he goes, "Hi, this is it was Steve Katz, I forgot something Katz." And he says, "This is the man who composed the music." And the guy smiles and nods at her, and she just continues dancing. So, but anyway, and so the whole movie featured this man's music in it. And like I said, the movie was like the music. It went all over the place and was totally uninteresting.
I see. So you would appreciate a jazz that has more of a control versus
Yes.
any scat
Right.
like kind of style.
Mhm.
And you appreciate the control that
Mhm.
classical music has and the
Yeah.
rules and regulations, which kind of fits to your personality if you think about it. Like it's kind of you're kind of mixed in between, because in one way you always want to be a rebel without a cause, and in the other hand you can't appreciate anything if it doesn't have rules.
Well, like I told people when I became an Orthodox Jew, they were very surprised. I said, "Why did you become an Orthodox Jew?" And I said, "I became an Orthodox Jew because I'm against organized religion."
Exactly, because they're all disorganized.
Or be Orthodox Jewry is anything but organized.
What about I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, Minnie the Moocher. I think I've showed you Minnie the Moocher.
In the Moocher. Uh-oh.
Howdy, howdy, hi, howdy, howdy, howdy.
Oh, yes, I saw.
Yeah, so that's more of like I can think of more of a jazz.
Oh, there was one thing though
Yeah,
about PBS,
yeah.
the children's educational station when you kids were little. I used to let you kids watch that station a lot, and then I didn't like the way it was going.
What do you mean?
Okay, there was a program they had about jazz, and this jazz musician was playing. So the station manager says to him, "Well, tell everybody about what is jazz." So he says, "Well, in jazz we break the rules." So the camera focuses on the station master's face, and he smiles and said, "Hear that, kids? He breaks the rules, and it's okay." And then it stopped.
Oh,
I went, "Ooh!" I said, "The purpose of preschool education is to socialize these children into following rules so that you can become disciplined to become a responsible adult." I said, "I don't want my kids watching a station that's encouraging them,
it's
in this way." And then what I didn't like was, I think I told you this, we had a thing where they had on Sesame Street, they had Ellen DeGeneres,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah,
went
yeah,
through
yeah.
that.
We
Okay,
talked about that. We talked
so I'm not gonna go through that.
about.
So it was after that I said that,
Yeah.
forget it. My kids are not
Well,
watching
the
this
thing
anymore.
is also, I think it's the American way. It's like this. We're growing up in the from Jewish Orthodox environment where it's like rules are rules, and they're not made to be broken. They're made to be debated and eventually bent, but never broken. And I think with a lot of American culture, it's always about being the cowboy, being that kind of guy who breaks the rules and is like there are thousands of American movies where the hero is the one that breaks the rules and fights against the system and wins because that's what America's all about. We had America was fighting
The pioneering
the
spirit.
pioneering spirit, fighting against the British, no taxation without representation. I'll do what I'll do in a manifest destiny. I'll control my own destiny. Like that's the American dream. So that's just American culture that conflicts with Orthodox culture, Jewish Orthodox culture, where it's
Not
like
necessarily, because we Jews basically have been the rebels of the world. We have had to fight against a lot of oppressive establishments and insisted stubbornly to continue our way of life despite their rules and what they were trying to do.
But no, that's a different story. That's a different story. With us, we receive the rules from God Himself, and we're staying true to the rules no matter what happens. That's like the opposite of a pioneer. A pioneer is someone who breaks all rules and creates his own destiny.
But wait a
That's
minute.
not what Judaism's all about.
I was talking to your brother the other day who he is, God willing, is going to be a shaliach
Yeah.
in a part of the country and in an area where there are very, very few Jews.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, you're a pioneer. You really are. You're going into an area that is like, has never been, as far as Yiddishkeit is concerned, has never been tested, has never been tried. And you're going to be the first one to go there and set up a synagogue, maybe in a Jewish school. I mean, he is really going to be a pioneer in the true sense of the word.
Okay, I would have to disagree with that in regards to the terminology of pioneer, because pioneer would be more of saying like you're trying to go into a place of barbarians and you're trying to civilize them.
Not barbarians, but
that's
you're
not
going
necessarily
into
right.
uncharted territory.
But
that's what the pioneers did. The pioneers went into areas of uncharted territory and set up new communities. Let's look it up in Surrey. What is the definition of pioneer? Let's see what she says.
As a noun, pioneer means a person who is among the first to explore or settle a new country or area. Do you want to hear the next one?
Yes.
As a verb, it means develop or be the first to use or apply a new method, area of knowledge, or activity. Do you want to hear the last one?
Nope.
Go
good
ahead.
enough.
Let's go.
That's perfect. You already dug yourself a grave. Come on. Fine. What's the third one say?
Okay, what's the third one?
No,
Go ahead.
read it. It's right there.
Okay, it says a member of an infantry group preparing roads or terrain for the main body of troops. Well, isn't that the Rebbe was always saying that we're fighting the war Mashiach?
No, Ima, there's more to it. There's a lot of layers, and the terminology you're using right now can come off very archaic, and people can misinterpret it very strongly.
Well, I disagree with you. I think the Lubavitcher Shluchim that go into these uncharted areas and are the first ones to actually bring Yiddishkeit to these areas are definitely pioneers.
They're not pioneers, they're lamplighters. There's a difference.
Maybe it's the same. To be a pioneer, like I said, to go into an area that hasn't been settled before or whatever, to bring something new to an area.
It's not new. It's always been there. It's not new.
No, it's new for a lot of these places.
But it's always been there. That's the point.
It's always been there.
So the whole point in Chabad Hasidus is that you already are a Jew with all the Torah mitzvos inside you. We are just the lamplighters to show you the lamp inside you and the light inside you. It's not about a pioneer fighting against this and fighting against that and trying to start a whole new thing. No, it's nothing new. It's all old. We're just putting a reminder on your little, like shoulder. Think, hey, you exist. You're being heard. That's what it is. I think people kind of misinterpret it and misunderstand what going on Mifsaim and Shluchas is all about. And the whole point is just to being there, being present, making sure all Jews are seen, all Jews are heard. We show you Ahavas Yisrael, and we let you know that you yourself have all the Torah and mitzvos inside you. That's the whole point. I think with pioneers, it's about breaking free from the rules and starting your own thing, which literally was the second definition that that series said. So that's what I was saying. That was my point.
We can agree to disagree.
Yeah, yeah, that's why we have this on record, so you can be shown. But
When I die, you're gonna play some of the stuff, and people are gonna say, "Boy, that woman sounded so stupid." Right?
no. It's I think what it is people are going to listen to it and understand the cultural differences of two
Mhm.
different people. I think having these debates and having this recorded, I think, is important enough when you have so much turmoil and so much conflict happening nowadays, where you
Mhm.
can't have a conversation with two conflicting interests. Everyone
Ooh,
freaks out.
interesting.
So this is more of a record of like people can
Mhm.
listen to it, and I bet you $5, two people listen to it will have three opinions. So it's
True.
fine. So I'm not worried
True.
about it. I just like having a record and like making sure my voice is heard when your voice is being heard. So that's that. But moving on from jazz and whatnot. So you are not a huge fan of jazz. You like more of a controlled jazz. If that gets too,
Yeah, Gershwin. Yeah. Mhm.
would you ever consider? So let's talk about comedy then. Do you like comedy when it's a story and a joke, or do you like comedy when it's like a one-two liner? Did you have any comedians you listened to when you were younger?
Um. Well, of course, when I was a kid, me and my sisters used to watch the Marx Brothers movies all the time,
Yes, yes.
and I remember just sitting there in one of his movies. I think about the store or something when they have the chase scene where they're chasing each other around. The guys are chasing them around the store or something. I remember just sitting there as a kid and laughing so hard that I was actually crying. Three Stooges. I didn't think. I mean, I enjoyed watching Three Stooges as a kid,
Yeah.
but I didn't laugh as much as I did with the Marx Brothers, and it didn't occur to me, now as an older person, I look back and, they used they used a bit of Yiddish. It was
Yeah.
so funny in some of their and I didn't realize at the time, like, when they were making when they were pharmacists, they were supposed to be pharmacists, and they decided they wanna make, the formula for eternal youth for this woman whose husband left her because she's old. They want to make this formula and give it to her and make her young again so her husband will love her and come back to her. So they're in the lab and they're putting all the stuff together and Mo is calling out all these Yiddish terms like one of the ingredients was mishigas. Yeah.
It's cute. Yeah, I like that actually. Sometimes I watch like movies and TV shows where there's like a little bit of like a Jewish like flair that like if you're Jewish, you pick it up right away. If you're not, you'll go over your head.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can tell like, oh, there's a Jewish writer right there.
But there was I remember when was it the Cisco Kid
Oh yes,
came out
yes.
with Gene Wilder and Harrison Ford.
Made by Mel Brooks.
And yeah, and the critic was talking about the difference between the Jewish audiences in Pikesville watching it and the non-Jewish audiences, say like in Catonsville or Towson watching it. And they said when the guy in the synagogue, when they decided that they were gonna have this like big celebration, the guy asks the I think the rabbi or something or somebody who's in charge of the synagogue, how are we gonna pay for it? And he whispers to him, take it from the building fund. And he said the audiences in Pikesville just roared. He says, whereas the audiences, the non-Jewish audiences,
Didn't get it.
they laughed, but they didn't roar as loud as the
Yeah,
Jewish
because it's just
audiences did.
it's a different culture. Like I remember listening to, or I was watching this one interview with, um, uh, um, shoot, what's his name? He played an American gangster. Um, his last name is Washington. He's a black actor. Trying to remember
Is
his
it
name.
Dennis Washington?
Dennis Washington.
Dennis?
No, it's escaping me right now. Hold on. Let me just check.
But God bless the Surrey in our lives.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right to
I'm trying to memorize it and not use my phone when um but yeah, it was a 2007. It was oh, Denzel Washington. Thank you. Jeez Louise.
I was close, Dennis.
I can't believe I forgot him. So Denzel Washington,
Senior moment.
yes, when Denzel Washington was being interviewed by one like not TMZ but like Entertainment Weekly kind of person, and they were asking him. There was this movie. I think it was I think it was a movie about, I read it when I was in college. It's about this black man who's garbage he's a garbage man, and his son is coming is like it wants to I think, might be a football player, something like that. And it's all about the strife and the struggle, and it's very much involved about black culture. I'm trying to remember it. I'm losing it right now. I don't want to Google it. But they were interviewing him, and they're like, "Well, why?" I think they asked, like, I think Spike Lee directed it,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Well, why did Spike Lee direct it? Why not somebody else?" And he's like, "It's the culture." And she's like, "Care to explain?" He's like, "Why did Martin Scorsese make like would you Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg are great film directors, but if Steven Spielberg would direct and film a Martin Scorsese movie, or Martin Scorsese would direct and film something like Schindler's List,
Mhm.
like you wouldn't have the culture involved."
Mhm.
He talks about in black culture understanding the smell of a hot comb on your head. Something,
Mhm.
I guess, something when they carve your hair out. I'm not really fully
No,
familiar.
I when I was in high school, I was in a dormitory situation for the summer, and one of the girls who was in the dormitory with us was a black girl who was involved in this program that we were in. And one night we were just hanging out in her room and we're all just talking. And as we're talking, she was straightening her hair and she had an electric burner and she had this iron comb
Yeah.
and she would have it on the burner and we would just be talking and then every now and then she would pick it up and go through her hair with it to straighten it, put it back, then take another section of hair, straighten another section of hair with that.
By the way, I just checked. It's called Fences. I read it. It was a play. It was a play, and then I think it came out in 2016. Um, but yeah, it's a very intense, very emotional movie. Yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. So like it's all about the culture. It's all about what you understand, and that's why we're talking about Frisco Kid and everything like that. When there's a lot of Jewish culture in something. I know I hang out sometimes with like, some people who aren't Jewish, and like I watch a movie, and like they'll say something and be real soft, real subtle, and like I'll catch it and I'll start like laughing or whatnot. And they're like, "What's so funny?" And I explain it. But that's also with Mel Brooks with his History of the World Part Two,
Mhm.
where it got like super Jewy, where like he just was unapologetically like doing a lot of very Jewish humor.
I've never watched it. Maybe we can watch it tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, a Halloween movie.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a right now it's a four-part series episode TV show, which is it's the same thing. But yeah, I think that's also it's like that's what I find interesting enough when I'm looking at movies and TV shows and entertainment and seeing the Jewish culture there. But then again, like I back to what I was saying about comedy. I was trying to get you to ask you like any comedians like
Bill Cosby, about when he first came on the scene.
before or after the pills. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into that. It was
I
very
know it's very
disappointing,
rad.
but when he first came on the scene,
Yeah.
and he would tell stories about growing up at his family, and me and my parents, all of us, were laughing especially his brothers, like at nighttime going to sleep and how the hazing that went on, like with their brother and the father coming and go, okay, everybody get out of the bed, and trying to get the kids to sleep. And we were all laughing, my parents and me. And my mother said, oh, my mother said that only somebody who grew up with siblings could have totally appreciate his humor. Like he was talking about, I think he and his brother, when they were laying in bed, they're trying to go to sleep, and the older brother is trying to, they're trying to like
Nudge each other.
nudge each other. So the older brother starts his business. You're not really my brother. What? He goes, yes. He goes, the policeman found you in a garbage can and he brought you to daddy because he heard he was kind. And the younger brother bursts into tears. And the father comes in and goes, what's the matter now? And the younger brother's crying and crying. And we're all laughing because everybody who has siblings, I don't know, that's such a typical thing for older siblings to do to younger ones to tease them about, oh, you're not really my brother or my sister.
What did you do to tease your sister?
Um, uh, let me see. There was one time when the Beatles came out,
When the Beatles came out, okay.
we decided to cut our hair short like the Beatles.
Give yourself Beatles haircuts, okay.
My mother had a fit,
You're-
and my mother was a corporal punishment anyway. So we saw her coming. We ran down the hall, and unfortunately, my youngest sister couldn't keep up with us. We ran into him. We shut the door, locked it, so my mother couldn't catch up with us. So my mother
Beat the shit out of your sister.
my poor younger sister got the brunt of it. I'm freaking-
I think she
Oh, I
still hates
couldn't
you for
believe-
that, by the way. Not gonna lie.
I don't blame her. I don't blame her. That was wrong of me. But I remember my family always teasing me about me like being adopted, being found in the trash can and being brought to them. And because see, in my family, everyone had black hair but me.
You had like auburn hair? What did-
Well, I was born like light hair, like blondish.
Oh, similar to all of us. Like we kind of grew
Right.
out of it, but we had
As you get
blonde
older,
hair.
so- yeah, but blonde hair, and of course, as I grew up, but I still my hair wasn't like black.
Yeah.
Like my rest of my family was brown, and they all had like white skin,
Hmm.
and I was just see, I had
Olive,
like more
yeah.
olive skin. So my I remember when my mother teasing me said, well, look at us, we all have black hair. And look at your hair. Your hair is like brown, and look at us, all the white skin, and you've got this, darkish skin.
Like, well, something's gonna happen. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that when we were kids, what I would do to like my younger siblings. Um, I don't think we ever like I ever did any of that. I do remember my younger brother and my other younger brother, they used to go at it where, they watched it.
Oh, that's scary.
And-
That is a scary
and
movie.
then-
Oh.
And then one brother A would lock brother B in the basement and go and then close and lock it. And then brother B would freak out and like bang on the door. And then we'd have to break it up. But that got really bad. I mean, there's still resentment, not gonna lie.
Yeah, but I remember also we watched a movie. My sisters and I saw this movie called Premature Burial.
Yeah.
It was of course supposed to be like a takeoff on the Edgar Allan Poe essay about Edgar Allan Poe wrote an entire essay, really scary, about incidences of people being buried.
Yes, I
mistaken
read
crime.
that. I
Really
read that. Yeah,
scary,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The Crown of no. What's it
It
called?
was called Premature Burial.
No, there's another one that he had about it. Multiple barrel ones. One of them was about a guy who was drunk, and the other one, and his colleague wanted to take revenge.
A cask of Amontillado.
Thank you.
Amontillado. The cask of Amontillado. How do you pronounce it? The cask of
The cask
uh,
of
Amontillado or something.
yeah. So that was
Yes,
that.
and he puts them in a casket and he just leaves them there. He goes back to the party.
Yeah, it
Oh
was
my
called the
gosh.
cask of Amontillado.
Amontillado. Yes, I remember that.
Yes, I remember reading
Ooh.
that. That one was intense. That
So
was
anyway,
intense.
so in the movie, this man sees a can of worms, live worms, and you see him like it looks like he's eating the worms, like he's jumping the can towards his mouth and eating the worms. See the worms like going like going out of the can, presumably to his mouth. So after that, every time we had spaghetti,
Oh God.
I would tease my sister and go, worms, worms, worms. Yeah, shut up.
Jeez Louise. Now it makes more sense of like when I talk to her and like she like hears her name. It's just there's so much built up. Just like God damn. I try to forgive all my siblings with all their junk.
Yeah, you have to.
You
know,
have
but
to.
Kids are kids. They don't understand. They don't realize.
Well, I know, and you
I don't.
seriously show remorse with the stories you were talking about because you definitely didn't laugh your butt off and complain about it and be like, "Oh my God, that was the funniest thing ever." But no. It's terrible.
Done.
It's terrible.
Terrible.
You know what it is? I think it's just a tick. You have this tick where you think like you want to cry, but you're just laughing. I think that's the best way
Well,
to
I think
frame
it's
it.
because it's so typical for kids to do stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up, I still, I'm not angry about it now, but I like the fact they get to have it over their head, like my older brother with like the shtick he pulled with me. So like, it doesn't bother me anymore, but
Mhm.
I like bringing it up because it's just so much fun of like just seeing how much he's disappointed in himself and how much it hurts him. So it's nice. But like whatever, it's just that's just how it goes. But I don't know, people are people, kids are kids. It's a fun adventure. Like that's just life. You don't want to harbor any anger or resentment. Like really, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of
Mhm.
energy. You try to forgive and move on. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think if anything crazy like when I was a kid. Um, well, I mean, I know I did a cute thing with my younger brother where we packed up little hobo sticks and we walked and we tried to run away. And then it was like a couple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then
How far did you get?
I think like a couple doors down. That's it. I got hungry. It was Friday afternoon. It was raining. It was just like whatever. I'm like, this isn't gonna happen. I think one time though, when we were kids, I was walking with my brother to walking with my neighbors, and we were honestly, it's like little rascals. We were walking down the alley, just being ridiculous, and these guys, these older gentlemen, were like, "Hey, we're gonna get rid of this crate. Do you guys want this crate?" And we're like, "Yeah, we want it." We were so excited, but it was so heavy. We tried moving it, so they're like, we can help you," and they helped us move the crate into my neighbor's backyard.
Uh-huh,
We were so excited because it was like a clubhouse.
uh-huh.
But what happened was that my neighbor was like, "Well, it's in my yard, so it's mine." And I'm like, "No, it's all of ours. Don't go ahead." And we got this whole massive fight, and it was a giant conflict and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like we're both like adults now, and like
Yeah.
we don't care about it. But it's
Like,
a fun kids, Little Rascals story kind of thing. That's what kind of think of. Like I had like Little Rascal moments where it's just like kids just getting together, doing a bunch of silly, stupid stuff. Getting into trouble. Like I was seeing the nieces and nephews today.
uh-huh.
I was watching them, and like they were getting into their own little trouble, their own little fights, their own little
Yeah, everybody,
arguments.
we get our listening audience, a lot of the grandchildren and families came in for Chol Hamoed. I mean, for Pesach, the Pesach
Yeah,
vacation.
yeah, we were watching them. It was very cute, and very funny. Like just to see them because like they're like an 8-year-old kid, like really holding their own, like really like talking passionately. Like, no, this is my toy. That's what it is. I had it before. I got it as a present. Like that's it. Other kids like, well, you know what? I found it here, and therefore I found it in this area, and it was that location. Blah, blah, blah. It was silly, but it just like I don't know, it's petty, but it's just cute.
Very territorial.
Yeah, but it's
I like
cute. It's
that.
cute. It's funny. Well, it's kind of also funny watching the basketball games today. Like one of my nephews can really play basketball,
Oh, yeah.
and then and then like my other nieces and my sisters were having like a girls kind of basketball game, like a light, soft basketball game. He comes in and just like swoops him down and starts like doing all this tricks and stuff like that, and like shoots and scores. And like got like really aggressive, and my wother nephew came over, and they all were playing very aggressively, and like the girls were complaining, like, "What's going on? Like, I just want to play a nice game of basketball," you know. But that was funny. It was always cute. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Um, but again, let's retract back to the music. Um,
Well, we come a long ways, all the way from music
for music to
to
talking
kids
about
playing basketball.
exactly. Um, where it's just like I still love listening to like the very angsty music I heard when I was a kid, but listening to the lyrics now, it's just like, oh, well, this is just no, that's not really like.
She loves you, yeah, 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 she loves you. Yeah.
Well, did you ever listen to songs after like 20, 30 years and like actually listen to song and music and be like, wow, why did I actually like this?
Yeah, I've had that,
Like
but
what songs?
of course, you have the beginning Beatles, like she loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was like, think about that. It was like, yeah. But I think what else? What are the songs I listened to that? Oh yeah, you ain't nothing but a hound dog. God, no. The funny thing though about I heard a recording. Elvis did not. That was not an original. The
Hmm.
original, "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog," was done by a black group at the Onyx Club in I think it was like 1952,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, but it didn't have the beat. It was more steady. It went, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog."
No, 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 no,
Da,
no.
da, da,
I
da.
was gonna let you finish, and then I
Yep.
realized you got some information different. Um, so that was a cover of the original.
Hmm.
What you're listening to was still a cover.
What do you mean?
There's another cover that's very like very intense.
You mean there was one before the 1952 recording?
Yes. Yes.
What group did that? What was the?
I
When
think
was
it was
that
a woman. It
Uh-huh.
was a woman, and it was just I heard it
Oh.
because there's this guy on the Facebook video reels, whatever, where he listens to songs and he shows you the covers of the covers of the covers.
Hmm.
And Doja Cat, who's this singer now, did a cover of the Elvis version, which is a cover of the 1950s version, which is a cover, I think, of a 1940s version,
Wow.
which was the 1940s version was more intense. Like you can tell, like this woman had someone on her mind singing about it, and it's just
Oh
a
my
real
gosh.
intense, like boom, boom, boom. Song. I'll play it afterwards after the recording.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so that's what I find so interesting.
I'd like to hear that
Oh,
original. That
we
sounds
will.
fantastic.
Um, but that's what I'm curious about, like, you know, hearing these songs, hearing these covers, and realizing that like there's nothing new under the sun.
Mhm.
There's really nothing new. Like that's what I was talking about. I think I've mentioned this before, but I was doing research at the Mount Washington Monument in Baltimore,
Yeah.
and they had to strip away all the additional stuff, additional pieces of the building
Mm.
that were built in the 1900s because they did a bad job in preserving the building because all the moisture got in. It was a whole big to do.
Mm.
So everything was removed. So we went downstairs to the foundation to check everything out,
Mhm.
and there was graffiti from the construction workers in the 1800s.
Gosh, that's
And
amazing.
all it was like Jim was here. Jim is a dick. A bunch of penises everywhere.
Oh, you're
One
kidding
guy,
me.
like one
Oh,
picture is, yeah, I took some pictures. I have it on my
oh my
Facebook.
gosh.
One is like a guy like literally taking a dick to the face. Like it was just a
From
bunch
the
of
1800, the original structure.
nasty graffiti, and I started laughing because I'm like, nothing ever changes. Nothing ever changes. It's still a bunch of stuff. I'll show you to you afterwards. We'll go through everything. I'll show you
Oh
the
my
pictures.
gosh.
And like, yeah, that's what's just the funniest thing. But that's why it's like, in a way, when I'm seeing everything that's happening now with all this tumult, like it's gonna die down. Like Gamze Yavor, this whole thing will pass,
Mhm.
and it'll be a whole new thing that's gonna be like everyone's trying to fight for something that's supposed to be new and innovative and different, and we're trying to fight for something that's new and innovative and different. But it's just like whatever, you're just gonna go back to the source anyways. So do what you gotta do. You're just gonna waste your weight. The sad reality is you're gonna look at your life and realize you wasted so much of it.
Mm,
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean,
Mm.
whatever. That's just my cynical side note of the day. Um, and that I mean, that's kind of why I don't try to argue with people too much anymore. I don't try to think. I'm not trying to change your opinion because there's no point.
Mm.
There's no point. You're either gonna stick it to your own, ignore me, ignore what I have to say. Like, because I'm not trying to be egotistical, but like if you listen to what I have to say, and I listen to what you have to say, on some level, you will agree with me. But if you're not gonna agree with me on any level, for me, it feels like you're not listening. If you're not even agreeing with anything, like if you're not even agreeing that we're talking,
Mhm.
then I can't have a conversation with you. And that's kind of how it goes. But yeah,
And so, like the old saying goes, we can agree to disagree. But there was a girl, when I was teaching Hebrew school,
yeah,
and this was of course this was a Reformed temple where I
okay,
was teaching, and there was a girl, very smart girl, and I forgot exactly what she said, but she said something about her opinion of Torah Judaism, and she said, and I feel this way because, and she had a very good logical like argument that went boom, 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 boom.
yeah,
Except there was one point of there was one fact that was not correct, was not accurate about
yeah,
Torah Judaism, and that's what threw her off.
yeah,
So I said to her, I said, your argument now was so good. And I can tell you the way you thought through it and you expressed it so well. And I said, and it was such a good argument. I wish I could say I agreed
mhm,
because you presented it so very well. I said, I admire you very much and I respect you. And I said, but let me show you where in your arguments, because of certain facts that you might not be aware of, it kind of went astray.
yeah,
And I went point by point by point. And when I got to the point where she brought in I forgot what it was. I think she was talking about the Kriyas Yam Suf or something. And that's when I corrected her and said that what you said did not happen, that this is what happened.
Yeah,
And she goes, ah, it was like
because it makes
aha.
sense
Yeah.
because in a way we're all trying to search for the one and only truth. To be honest, there's a one and only truth. There's one absolute truth, 100%, and everyone's searching for that. And nowadays, there's this whole idea of like, well, I say my truth and you say your truth, and we're both right, even though one of us might be wrong. Like, no, I disagree with that. There's the idea that there's an ultimate truth, and hopefully we'll get the ultimate truth. And hopefully we'll get to the point of all of us will see the one true ideology. But it's also important to be respectful to somebody else with their reality and not try to shoehorn them or force them or get angry or whatnot if it's not breaking like a few cardinal rules. And I think one of the cardinal rules is damaging human beings. And that's where it's debate is what is really damaging. It's like assisted suicide. Is that damaging?
Mm.
That's a real debate. Abortion, is that damaging? Well, at what level? It's just
Mhm.
so that's really what we're trying to figure out. Like, what are the cardinal rules that we have to live by and hold on to? And it's about discovery. I think it's about once you discover, the true meaning of what you're looking for. I think that's when you're going to find a lot more stuff. But trying to think. But yeah, I think that's it. I think we're good.
Okay.
You have it? Yeah.
That's why. So anyway, I want to wish everybody out there a happy Pesach.
Happy Pesach.
Kosher, Pesach, Pesach, and hope you all enjoy your families. Don't fight too much. Don't bring up the past too much.
And c'est la vie.